Presented by Revolution Radio, broadcasting live from the Roanoke Valley of southwestern Virginia. Join us and see what life looks like from a medium's perspective with Reverend Tracey Lockwood, the medium's medium. We'll explore the tools of psychic development, hear stories and experiences from the other side, and learn to listen to our natural intuition. Now, our host, Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
Hello, beautiful lights, and welcome to another episode of From a Medium's Perspective. Today, I'm going to be talking to you about 100 questions about mediumship. And I'm going to be basing it on a book that was written by Reverend Lena Barnes Jefts, Jefts, Reverend Lena Barnes Jefts, who was a teacher of philosophy. It's an older book, and it's probably out of copyright by now, but I do want to give credit where credit is due, and it's entitled The Laws of Spiritual Mediumship. And I found it an interesting book. It's written from a spiritualist's perspective, and it has a little bit of strong emphasis on some biblical thoughts or interpretation. So I apologize for those of you that either don't know about or don't care about the Bible. It's not a Christian presentation today. It's just that this was written from a spiritualist perspective, and it interweaves with biblical philosophy. It's not going to be heavy on the Bible, promise. But their effort was to try to prove that the Bible was talking about the fact that mediums and healing and those types of things were active in the Bible. So anyway, but this particular book is written about the laws of spirit mediumship, and it's called 100 Questions and Answers for the Investigator. And so I'm gonna for the most part, I'm gonna ask the question like they have it, in order, and then I'm gonna give what they said, and then I'm gonna put in my 2 cents. So I just thought that would be interesting today. And the first question is, what is a spirit medium? And the definition that was accepted by the National Spiritualist Association tells us that a medium is one whose organism is sensitive to the vibrations from the spirit world, and through whose instrumentality, intelligences in that world are able to convey messages and produce the phenomenon of spiritualism. That's kind of wordy. I think it basically means that the medium is an instrument in a way. We serve as a sensor for the subtle energies that are on the other side, and we convey those messages and are the vehicle through which spirit produces physical phenomenon also. So that hopefully clarifies that. Number 2, do you believe that mediums are such from birth, or can they be developed? And they thought that the best mediums are the ones that were born that way, but that each individual has some type of mediumistic power, and that, I'm not going to read every single word here, and that we can't always have the phase that we desire and have to be content to develop that for which we are best fitted. The language is a little restrictive, and I apologize for that part, but it'll give you a feeling for how they thought. So I guess it's not something I should apologize for because I didn't write it. So what would I answer? Are mediums born that way? I think all of us are born with the ability to see spirit. I think that we're able to sense and feel energies and emotions. I think that during the life process, sometimes those things are rejected by the people around us or our interpretation or understanding of them. Sometimes people don't like to be seen, so they shut down or deny information. Sometimes people have been mentally indoctrinated into thinking that that's just a bunch of hooey, and so they pass that along to their children or friends and can kind of have a derogatory view of things like that. But I think it's really natural, and I do think that everybody can develop that ability, but they have to work through their own personal blocks, and they have to be willing and interested to do so. And there are different arenas that each person expresses themselves within. Number 3, why is it that loved ones in spirit must come through a medium rather than communicating directly to their own? And you know what? I think I'm going to actually skip their answers and just give you my answer. How about that? So I think that spirits use a medium because the medium is better tuned to receiving that information. They're not as emotionally bound by the loss of that person, and they're able, on a professional basis, to be able to gather that information because it's something that they've trained themselves to do. I think it's hard for people that have lost someone to put themselves in a neutral enough state of mind and energy to be able to pick up those subtle signals from spirit. When we lose somebody, we're in grief. We grieve. We're sad. We're angry. We're hurt. We're frustrated. We're sometimes afraid that we'll never be able to see them again. And obviously, fear would be the opposite of love and the vibrations that harmonize with those subtle realms. And so, if you think of it, our energy is just too amped up, too locked down in order to be able to perceive those subtle messages. But I do think that they can bring messages. I think they can bring messages through dreams. And I believe that most people have a sense of someone who has passed being around them, either directly or through signs. If you don't feel those messages that are being given to you, or you're missing them, it probably is because you might be looking for that person in the wrong vibrational place, because you're probably remembering what it was like right before they crossed. And of course, they're in a much lighter state of being, so you might completely miss what they are experiencing. And also, when we're in pain and we're in grief, we don't want to believe that. We want to have connection with the people that we have lost, but we don't want to be fooled or tricked, or sometimes we tell ourselves, well, I probably just made that up, that my mom just said I love me, that she loves me, but no, you didn't make it up. She did say that, but we go into denial because of our pain, and that's why it's easier for someone to come through a medium rather than talking directly to them. Question number 4, is the development of mediumship harmful to a person? No, and they say no too, but I think that it is actually of benefit, because as you develop your ability to perceive subtle energies, the energies of those that have crossed, and the things like auras, and being able to intuit what's going on for someone empathically and telepathically. As you do that, you have to be completely honest. You have to have a tremendous integrity. And I'm not saying that means that all mediums are 100% honest, but what I do find is that in the process of connecting and genuinely making that connection to the subtle realm, the other side, however you want to think about that, it takes a great deal of integrity to do that. And in that process, you begin to learn some things about yourself. You'll begin to learn where your truths are, what lies you tell yourself, what beliefs are no longer useful for you. So it's a great process of development. So I would definitely say that developing it is not harmful. The only thing that I might caution is that if somebody has gone through a very difficult, kind of silence of the lambs experience, opening their psychic ability in order for you to be able to become neutral enough to perceive the energies of other people that may be positive or negative, and to relay those messages with integrity, with a balance, not putting on your own projection or overlayment of what happened to you on them, that it takes a great deal of personal work to be able to get into that state of mind and to be able to move past the pain that you've gone through in order to do that. And that would go well with people that are having to be medicated for different disorders. It's possible that they would have to also, they might have an easier time connecting, but they might have more of a difficult time filtering out negative energies, just because drugs, alcohol, hypnosis, different things like that open our portal without our ability to help close that portal down and keep ourselves protected as we would naturally. And so that would be my only caveat to, is mediumship harmful to a person? I don't think mediumship itself is harmful, but I think that process could be very challenging for someone that's working through their own personal issues and haven't come to a point of peace about their own situations. That can always interfere. And it's not like we are perfect. I have no peace about certain items in my life too, but we're talking very large scale traumas that people have suffered. Those things can both open you up because you don't want that to happen again. So you have sort of an awareness that's created, but in order to be used as a medium for the healing and development and benefit of other people, you might need to be sure that you have healed some of that trauma before you proceed to work with people in public. Number 5, do you believe that a person is liable to become obsessed by evil spirits if she or he tries to develop mediumship? And I'm going to read what they say, and then I'm going to give my 2 cents there. Absolutely not. The erroneous statement that in becoming passive and receptive to spirit entitles entities you may attract an evil spirit who will lead you to do wrong creates a great misunderstanding. They say the law of attraction governs these things, good attracting good, evil attracting evil. This is a natural law and we can't get away from it. If an evil spirit can lead you to do wrong, it is the evil within yourself which makes it possible. To the good and true medium, only the good can come. Again, I really think that needs to be softened a little bit and explained. Basically, there's a difference between possession and channeling. In possession, it is a dark spirit, an evil, if you want to call it that, that has a hostile takeover of someone who is in the physical world that has very poor boundaries. And these boundaries might be due to what I was talking about earlier about having suffered tremendously in life physically, or having a mental illness that is extreme, or working through emotions, even grief emotions, because we tend to think the negative, and we're also not schooled in protection. I think it's very important to know how to ground yourself, how to center yourself, and how to protect yourself. Those are kind of basics. Channeling, on the other hand, is someone raising their vibration to connect with a higher being and to be able to channel or bring through those messages of love and light. And obviously, love is the opposite of anything dark and evil. So you wouldn't have to fear possession if you're channeling Archangel Michael, or whatever. It's not going to happen because it's a high vibrational being. 6, what are some of the things essential to good mediumship? And they said that you need a practical understanding of the philosophy and laws of mediumship, a sincere desire to give out only the highest and best, and a wish to be of service to mankind as the incentive for developing your mediumship. A true and sincere mediumship is the holiest gift ever received by mankind. Yeah, what are the things essential to good mediumship? I believe that it has to do with kindness and integrity. Definitely agree that your intent is important. If your intent to become a medium is so that you can be the next amazing Kreskin, then I know I wouldn't want you for a student. And it's not a very wholesome way to begin working with spirit. If your intent is to be of service and to assist people at the deepest niches and eddies of their being, then that would be the one to head for you. That's a good thing. So I think that integrity is really important. I think kindness is really important, and a desire to serve, and realizing the very seriousness of people's lives. That when they come to you, they're hurting, they need answers, they're broken down to a point where they just need the help of someone else because they can't connect with their intuition as well as they could on another day. And so being that light and helping them find resonance to truth, that's really important. Number 7, who was the greatest medium ever known? And they say it was Jesus of Nazareth, and gives a reference that the Bible is full of instances regarding his mediumistic powers. I don't know who the greatest medium ever known was. I do know that I've encountered so many people that I have such a deep respect for their mediumistic abilities. And because when they connect for people, whether they're connecting with spirits and that have crossed for that person, loved ones that have crossed, and bringing them to a description and interchange that makes it feel like you've had a really authentic visit with that person, or whether it's bringing a perspective into an issue from a psychic perspective that is life-changing for that person, that helps them understand and clarify the circumstance that they're dealing with, maybe their relationship or their career, or they're thinking about some particular thing that frees them to move on. Those are excellent examples of great mediums. 8, what great natural law controls all phases of mediumship? And I'll read what they say. The law of vibration. All things in the universe are vibrating at their rate of vibration, and that determines their nature. Each medium has a vibratory wavelength, and upon the strength of that medium, the conditions brought by the sitters and the knowledge of the laws of communication displayed by the manifesting of spirit depends the entire success of the phenomenon presented. My God, if that isn't a run-on sentence. Okay, so the question was, because we've all forgotten by now, what great natural law controls all phases of mediumship? And that's the law of vibration. It's the resonance. And being able to tune yourself to shift into different dimensions and different aspects of being able to connect with a spirit when, some people say, well, you can't connect with a spirit who's passed until a certain length of time has occurred. I don't have trouble doing that. I think that, and there are other people that don't have trouble doing that. I think that you can connect with someone living. You can connect with someone right prior to their transition and through their transition and immediately on the other side of their transition. And you can connect with their experience as they go on to the other side and as they begin their processing and evolution on the other side. I think it's a matter of development. So, but definitely the law of vibration is the natural law that affects mediumship. 9, what would you advise as the best means of developing spiritual mediumship? And they say that they would suggest joining a development class, if possible, under the direction of a good teacher. If you're not able to do this, then form a group of sincere investigators yourself. 3, 5, or 7 people, some male and female, make the best combinations. Be practical and punctual and conscientious, and don't become discouraged too easily if you don't receive manifestations right away. So they're saying, either find a teacher, and I'm a teacher, and there are other good teachers out there as well, or form a circle that's basically a development group, and practice exercises and meditations together. And I've got some information for people that are doing that as well, to help them focus like that. So number 10, what are the best times and conditions to sit for development? And they say anytime that your mind is at ease and you can absolutely relax. You should appoint a certain time for your sittings and let nothing but sickness prevent you from keeping that appointment. Harmonious conditions are necessary for development, and that's why you should choose very carefully those whom you would sit with in your circle. In your interest and anxiety to develop, do not overdo things or sit too often or for too long a time. Well, for me, when I was developing my ability at the very beginning, I would sit for about an hour or more each night. And I was really lazy meditator, so I would at the end of the day, whenever I was getting ready for bed, whether that was 10 o'clock or 9:30 or whether it was 11 or whatever, I would turn on either the Om or the shamanic drumming, and I would just sit in that energy and try to relax my mind and allow images to come to me and conversations with my guides. And I had some physical phenomenon begin to happen too that was interesting. And I did that. I was very dedicated to that for probably a year, maybe as long as a year and a half. And then it was time to shift gears for me and not spend that much time. But I would definitely say I'm a fan of C.W. Ledbetter, for those of you that don't know. And he said that the best way is concentration, meditation, and contemplation. In other words, concentrating, learning to keep your brain waves in a certain range, meditating to relax your mind and receive information, and then contemplating what it is that you got and allowing that to become some of your profound knowledge base. So, yeah. And so 11, they said, you say not to sit too often or too long. Why? And what effect would this have? And it says your body and brain are of matter and are attuned to the slower vibrations of the material plane. When you seek constantly to attune yourself to the higher and much more rapid vibrations of spirit, you are apt to shatter the delicate mechanism of that brain and cause disaster to the physical body. To become a fanatic on any one subject is to become unnatural, and the spirit teachers do not want us to do that. Let us always be natural and practical in our mediumship, realizing that it is not necessary to be erratic in order to be a spiritualist. Basically, I think in answer to why you wouldn't sit too long is that we have subtle energy and we have physical energy. And our physical body, when we encounter those other dimensions, we're actually shifting the focus of our energy as a being to those other dimensions. And we can become drained in the subtle energies because we're traveling and shifting vibration and all those kind of things. And so it's really important to give your body rest and to nurture it with food and follow a practice of moderate exercise and care for your physical vehicle. We forget that, and so it's really important to do that. I know this year I've dedicated myself to remaining aware of the needs of my body on top of the needs of my clients and spirit and all the things I love to do. Number 12, how often should one sit for unfoldment? And they say once a week in your class and maybe twice a week for a short period for concentration or inspirational writing is enough. I think that I was a meditation addict because I literally did an hour a day. So I'm not setting that as a standard for you. I think probably doing that 2 or 3 times a week would have been more than enough, but I really enjoyed it. It's almost like my brain and my mind really needed that time. So I'm really glad that I took that time. It definitely accelerated my abilities much more quickly. But I was advised by another medium that was much more advanced than I that it would be okay to take a rest from that, and so I did. Number 13, is one apt to receive messages that are not uplifting or of a high moral character from those in spirit? And I don't even want to read what they say, I just want to answer that. People will receive messages according to where they set their vibration and where they expect them to come from. I had a guest on the show, Delano Kyle, who we talked about overlays and projections, and this definitely fits that. If you are connecting with your spirit guides and projecting onto them that they're being critical of you or pushing you or making you do stuff or not happy with you, then you are totally missing your spirit guides. You are projecting and overlaying messages that are echoes of your past or echoes of your subconscious view of yourself. So anyway, we're going to come back and answer a few more questions. It's my pleasure.
Now back to our show from a medium's perspective with host Reverend Tracey Lockwood.
I'd like to tell you that if you have an interest in developing your gifts, either your psychic or mediumship gifts or your intuition, I would love to work with you. It is my deepest pleasure to read for people and to also assist them in the development of their abilities. I love to teach, and I have several things that are available for you. I have a professional level a professional psychic mediumship certification program available. I have an academic program that I'm working on and should be launching shortly that allows you to just sort of study on your own. And I'm going to have some psychic mediumship development units that are designed, multi-week courses, maybe 6 weeks or so, that are going to help you build your experience through live training. So very exciting stuff coming up. Please feel free to contact me directly. My website is mediumtracylockwood.com. My business cell is 540-998-9300. 9789. So we were talking about question 13, which was, are you likely to get messages that are negative from those in spirit? And we were talking about overlays and projections. Well, there are other things too that go on. Not all spirits, when they cross, just become examples of love and light. Some of them are still pretty dark. Some of them are in a terrible mental place. Some of them are not nice. And so it really depends on who you connect with. But I would say that my practice is that I ask my guides to screen or vet the spirits. So I do not allow any negative energy near me or my client when I'm working. So if somebody through their family came through, for instance, that has a really crappy attitude, I have my guide Primrose just put them on the bench, and they have to sit there, and they're not allowed to speak, because I'm not interested in deviating attention to someone who doesn't have a repentant or kind attitude and is not interested in genuine communication with my client in a positive way. So you can set those boundaries and ask your guides to implement them so that your conversation stays positive and uplifting with your client. It is sometimes important to connect with people that have been cruel or have been abusive, but they have to operate within a certain realm. They're not, sort of like, if you can't say anything nice, then don't say anything at all. That's how that goes in my camp. So, question 14, why is it that some spirits become confused when asked to give a message regarding time? And they say, in the spirit world, time is not divided into hours, days, weeks, and years as it is on earth, for time is eternal. The spirit entities may see something that is about to happen, and it might be near or far off, and not being familiar with time as we see it, they sometimes make a mistake in judging the length of time before that will come to pass. The spirit guides are much better qualified to judge time, for they are in constant contact with the earth conditions, but even they may make some errors. I don't think our spirit guides make errors. I think what it is that things happen, and from a spiritual perspective, it is less important when it happens than if, and it matters the sequence or the process that leads to that. And so often I'll be given a sort of a event timeline, in the sense that this is going to happen, and then that's going to happen, and then when this happens, that's going to be happening, that kind of thing, sort of that. And I can get a feel maybe for whether it's weeks, months, days, or years, but pinning it down to an exact time frame is really difficult. And part of that has to do with the work that your client needs to do on building their life. If somebody, for instance, is going to meet their love of their life, but they are not self-maintaining, they're not taking care of themselves, they're not appearing in public, they're not, then there's, that person is not going to be able to find them, basically. So it's very important for us to put ourselves in the best possible situation. Our will in our physical body has a great deal of power, and we need to use it to make our life the best that it can be. And knowing sometimes, well, this will happen before that, or this is going to happen and then that does help. But fixating on the date specifically can create an over-focus, which means that it creates a resistant energy, because there's so much of your energy looking at that one result or that one thing, like, when is my soulmate going to come, is a typical question, or when am I going to get that job? And there's so much fear involved in believing that it never will happen, or you're not sure that it will happen, that energetically what it does is it continues to push it further and further into the future until you're ready, because the universe is not going to force a soulmate or a job on you until you are ready to receive it. So it's better to approach things that are coming in a state of allowance and allowing them to come into your life and trusting that they will come in at the right time and knowing that they're coming and being happy in that knowledge, but not trying to pin it down to who, what, where, when, why, because that's just not how spirit works. All right. Number 15, do you believe it's necessary for a medium to be educated aside from his or her psychic development? Wow, that's a power-packed question. I don't know necessary, but I think to work for your fullest and highest capacity, it is really helpful and prudent to learn from people that are more developed and from about the field of psychic mediumship. And they say in the book, absolutely yes, we might as well face facts and realize that one of the reasons why we have not attracted more of the higher or more intelligent minds into our ranks today is because the illiteracy of many of our workers, and they're referring to psychic mediums that are developing, and they don't mean inability to read, they mean ill-versed in the laws and terminology and practices and concepts relative to psychic mediumship. The medium should be able to contact the thinking minds of the world in a manner that would be a credit to the cause. And, they're actually saying, like, do you need to be educated to be a good medium? And they mean in the physical sense. And they say yes, but I say no, because just because someone can't read, write, or calculate, and just because somebody might have a physical impediment, like they might be deaf or they might be blind, doesn't mean that they can't see, hear, feel, sense, and know in the physical realm. So I trump their answer and say that although it's really important for your psychic development to have a comprehensive exposure to the field, I'm going to put in a shameless plug, self-affirming plug for the certification program, which does that. The professional psychic mediumship certification program that I teach absolutely brings you through a comprehensive exposure in a very brief time. It's a 14-week program. And, it makes sure that you know what you're doing, both practically and also in terms of being aware of the field of psychic mediumship. And I do think that's important. But I'm going to argue with them that I don't think that you need to be educated. I think you only need an open mind. And I think that there are examples in the history of spiritualism that I could argue with them about that, because there have been some amazing mediums that were not educated but still had an amazing gift. So I'll pass on the next question. Number 16, have the mental and moral statuses of the medium anything to do with those that they contact from the spirit world? Okay, so I think what they're asking is, does the medium have to have a high moral or mental status, and does that affect their ability to contact the spirit world? And their answer is, to a certain extent, yes. The law of like attracting like is natural law, and it functions on both a spiritual and material plane. If we have a high mental and moral standard, is it not quite natural that spirits of a like nature can manifest harmoniously with our vibration? And they've quoted, upon a medium's own ideals depends the heights to which her message shall ascend. Yeah, that's really antiquated. I think that the ethics of mediumship is really important. utilizing compassion, integrity, proof, evidence, etc., tactfulness, etc., is really important. And I think that if the medium has a nefarious character and is intent on making money and not on serving people, that they might well draw darker spirits to them. They would also probably leave their clients with a sense of fear or dependency or confusion. If you ever get a reading from someone and you leave it and you're like confused, and not confused because you feel like, wow, that was a totally different perspective, but like confused, like uncertain about things, and you feel fearful and you feel like maybe you need to come back and have something dark removed because they've made you afraid because of either people around you or your own energies, run, not walk away from that person, and don't go back to them. Go to someone that has a higher degree of integrity, because the purpose of a good medium work would be to instill clarity and love and a perspective that helps that person, enables them, empowers them, and helps them to move forward. So I think that's how the mental and moral status of the medium affects the spirits, because, well, you heard how I organize my spirits, my guides to organize the spirits coming in. I just don't put up with any low vibrational anything, because that's not my purpose. Number 17, what do you believe to be the most important teaching derived through mediumship? And I'm going to read their answer because that's interesting. I'm thinking probably the proof of continuation of life, maybe, because that connection between us and the other world is so important. But let's see what they say about the most important teaching derived through mediumship. Those rules and precepts that enable us to understand better our lives, both here and hereafter. Those laws that teach us our relationship to the brotherhood of man and the fatherhood of God. That marvelous counsel that bids us to live in harmony with ourselves, the natural law, and with all mankind while we are still upon the earth plane. I'm not sure I completely get that. I mean, I do get it, but it's, again, a huge long sentence. Yeah, understanding, clarity, but I think it's more that connection. I think they're talking about the perspective of who we are in the universe, who we are as spiritual beings in a physical body. 18, how do we receive our spirit guides? And it says they are attracted to us through the action of natural law. They may see our need of them, or we can perhaps be used by them to help mankind, thus aiding their development or progression as well as our own. Again, the law of like attracting like is manifested. Our weaknesses, our good traits, our work or interests in this life also attract those of like nature and desire from across the border. Upon our own mentality and spirituality depends the kind of guide that we will attract. No, I think that we all have phenomenal guides that are in our inner band and able to work with us. I think that we may attract outer band guides that are more in tune, like they're saying, with our vibration. And of course, somebody that has darkness within them is going to attract dark energies also, but I do believe that they have guides of integrity that work with them as well, should they choose to utilize them. Number 19, the Bible tells us of spiritual gifts. Do you consider mediumship as such? Their answer, most certainly, there are many gifts of mediumship which are not recognized as such any work on earth in which the spirit forces assist us is really a phase of mediumship. Our great artists, musicians, poets, and other writers derive assistance from those who have passed on, just the same as those who are manifesting any accepted phase of mediumship. The Bible refers to the spiritual gifts in 1 Corinthians 12:14, talking about the diversity of gifts, but the same Spirit. I did another episode called Spiritual Gifts versus Psychic Ability, and absolutely the Bible talks about spiritual gifts, and they are most definitely inclusive of mediumship. I consider mediumship to be the discerning of spirits that are mentioned in the Bible, and that is the ability to identify, classify, sort, describe, and convey the messages of individual spirits. Absolutely in the Bible, yes it is. All right, number 20. Into what two classifications do we divide mediumship? They're talking like from a medium's practical perspective. They say mental mediumship and physical mediumship. They call them phases, mental phases and physical phases. And what they're talking about is mental phase is when you are basically telepathically or empathically conveying those messages from those in spirit. Physical phase or physical mediumship is when spirit embodies themselves through you in a particular way. They might show up in a form that everybody can see in the room. They might write on a piece of paper or the wall or fabric. They might put a picture or a photograph on something, and that's from spirit with no human hand. There's a wonderful medium, Hoyt Robinette, that I went to see several times, and I have several of his spirit precipitated cards. Precipitation is when spirit physically puts a picture on a card, an index card in this case, and there's a picture on the front and the names of your guides and loved ones on the back, and he doesn't touch the basket. So it's just really amazing. If you're curious about that, you can Google Hoyt Robinette, but also spirit precipitated art or spirit art. Spirit artists usually draw the spirits, but there are spirit artists that, like the Bang sisters back in the day, the 1800s, that were used to sit and then pictures would fully form under a canvas beside them. Pretty amazing stuff. Anyway, some of that still exists. I think Chesterfield, Indiana has some of their paintings, Camp Chesterfield, a spiritualist camp. But anyway, that's mental and physical mediumship, or mental and physical phases. Again, mental being the empathic and telepathic, like the mind to mind and soul to soul stuff, and the physical being transference of the spirit through the medium to something physical that people can see. An apport, which is something that appears out of the air, a crystal, an arrowhead, whatever, food, different things that manifest physically. I'm going to pick this back up on another time. Thank you for joining us. My website again is MEDIUMTraceyLockwood.com, and I'd like to remind you that it's never inappropriate to be kind, and without integrity, we have nothing.